Eldon McGraw. I'm with Riff It Up, and we're here with Scott Rochon with what band?
The Sympathy Orchestra.
So Scott, let's talk about your band. You have got quite a long history. First of all, tell us what your band is all about.
We're a classic rock band, also play some progressive rock, some psychedelic rock. We're a power trio currently. And
So explain to people out there what a power trio is. Not everybody knows what that means.
I'm not sure I can define it.
Give some examples maybe of some other bands.
Cream would be a power trio. Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Nice.
Bands like that. Yeah.
Rush, right?
Rush, yeah.
So what got you into progressive rock when you were younger? What was that trigger? What was the band, the artist? Kind of how did you get inspired to get into that world?
The trigger was seeing the Asia in Asia concert on MTV. And they had done a special thing before the concert about the different members of the band, and they mentioned how they were all from famous progressive rock bands, and so I was just starting to play the drums at that time, and of course Carl Palmer was very, very impressive, and they happened to mention that both him and Greg Lake, who was singing on that particular show, were in a band called Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Nice. So I'm like, all right, I got to check these guys out. So I went to Harmony House next day and picked up the Triple Live album from '74, and it just blew me away. I was hooked from that moment on.
And when you play these progressive songs, rock songs in your band, you have I've seen you live, so you have quite a variety of catalog from, is progressive rock considered kind of like 60s, 70s, 80s, or does it even go beyond that?
It goes beyond that, but its heyday was definitely, say like late 60s to mid 70s. But I mean, there are various offshoots that have lasted longer, but and probably a long period during the 80s where it was not cool and not good.
So let's talk about the other band members. What do they play, their names, a little bit about them.
Don Ruzek, he plays guitar, does backing vocals, very, very talented. And then Eduardo Perez is our bass player and our singer, and also extremely talented. They're both very, very good people in addition to being amazing musicians.
So like all great progressive rock bands, you guys have a long history of lineup changes.
Yes.
Not to go into every detail, but how many mocks have there been in the Sympathy Orchestra?
I think this is the 15th one.
And how many years?
Math. Roughly 14.
Wow, that's quite it's like every year, right?
15,
but you've been the consistent member, right?
Yes.
The only consistent member.
Yeah, I'm the only one.
Yeah, and then was one of the current band members in the band before? Did I understand that right? Okay.
Yes. Eduardo came in 2014 originally, and he was a big reason why we switched from being an original band to a cover band, because he knew a gazillion songs and could sing them all very well. And then he was in for a few years, had to go back to Brazil. He's from Brazil. And had to go back there for a period of time. And then once he was able to come back permanently, and once a position opened up in the band again, we got him back in.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the songs that you guys do on your current set list. Not to get into every song, but maybe a few highlights.
Sure.
I know you have a variety within progressive rock even some new wave, I understand.
Yeah.
So maybe some of the songs.
We do some Pink Floyd.
Okay.
We do, there's not as much progressive stuff currently because we don't have a keyboardist any longer.
Right.
So before we would do ELP, we would do King Crimson.
Okay. Really challenging
Pink Floyd.
yourself.
Yeah, we would do some really fun stuff. But yeah, Pink Floyd. A lot of it is more, I would say, classic rock or psychedelic rock now with the Who and the Beatles, and we'll go as far as U2, more forward as far as.
Right. You went all the way up to the 80s for that one.
Yeah, well, and I think Vertigo. We do Vertigo,
okay.
so I mean that would be early
modern.
2000s or late 90s. I'm not sure their history, so
right.
But a later one for them. So yeah, just Bad Company, Led Zeppelin.
Nice.
Queen.
All the stuff we grew up on.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Let's talk about drumming a little bit, right? Obviously, you're the drummer in the band. So maybe when you started, I know you talked about some influences, but maybe a little bit about your personal journey with the drum set and playing drums.
Self-taught. I wish I had all the resources that are available nowadays. It's incredible what people have to be able to learn from. But yeah, just learning through playing with bands. When I started playing, I lived in a townhouse, so I couldn't practice that often. So it was we made an arrangement with the next door neighbor that I could play for 15 minutes a day. And so I'd go down there and just try to play whatever song I could, and that was it. So yeah, most of my playing was with bands, other than learning just by myself on the drums.
Now I know, knowing you all these years, you were in a band called Downfall. That was an original band mostly.
Yes.
Talk a bit about the original experience, and then maybe compare it to being in a cover band. Essentially, you've had both experiences, so a lot of people are either one camp or the other. You've been in both.
Right. I mean, a lot easier to get gigs in the cover band. A lot easier to get better gigs in the cover band things. There's more places to play, more opportunities to play. The original band was very rewarding because you're playing your own music, and obviously you have a lot of pride in what you're doing. But the amount of venues, I mean, they keep, especially with the pandemic, keep shrinking. Yeah. There's just not a lot of places to play original music anymore.
Right.
So as much as I would like to get back into that, it's very tough.
So let's change gears a little bit. You're also a composer, right? You do original compositions.
Yes.
You do all kinds of electronic music. It's pretty diverse. I've listened to your stuff, obviously, for a while. Talk about that part of your life, your musical life.
I really enjoy that. It's a different challenge, obviously, than playing. Sometimes it's a struggle to get the ideas out of my head.
So what kind of style do you have?
I use a notation program. So, because I'm not a very good keyboard player, anything like that, I write all the music out for the different parts. And then I turn those into MIDI files, import them into my DAW, and assign instruments to them, and that's how I create the music.
But also, you've done some professional work with some of your composing. Maybe talk a little bit about how that's developed, and I know you'd like to have a future in that to go even further. Maybe a little bit that angle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's been extremely rewarding. It wasn't an avenue that I ever thought about doing, even though I'd been writing that kind of music for a long time, driving everybody up the wall with my early computer music, so it sounded very video game-ish, bad video game-ish, very cheesy sounding. But yeah, it's been just a great experience, and I just absolutely love it. I love being able to collaborate with other people with that kind of stuff, and I'm trying to interpret their vision in music, and it's just a different way of doing things, but it's very, very rewarding. I really enjoy it.
Good. So explain to me when you're playing live, being a musician myself many years, what does that feel like when you're performing on stage, whether it was with Downfall or Sympathy Orchestra? Give me your feelings on that.
There's no other feeling like it. It's just, I tend to be, no matter how many times I do it, there's always a bit of butterflies when I first start playing, but as soon as we get through that first song, kind of settle in. And it's especially when the crowd is into it and you're feeling that energy from them, and there's that give and take. It's hard to not want to do.
Right.
Very addicting.
And then talk about, again, let's go back to your band members, maybe some of the things, their inspirations. Obviously you know them well, maybe their influences, speak for them a little bit.
Eduardo, I mean, he, in all his years in Brazil, he was in a cover band called, and he still is whenever he goes back there, called the Apple Band. And they would play 3 or 4 nights a week, pretty much for 20, 25, 30 years they've done it. So he's played everything that you can think of, from Chuck Berry, or
Little Richard, probably.
Little Richard, yeah. I'm trying to think. Chubby Checker's who I'm thinking of.
Okay.
That was when I first met him. We were advertising as a progressive rock band, and he sent me a video link to a performance of him down in Brazil, and he sends me a video of him doing the twist. It couldn't be further from progressive music. And so that was my introduction to him, which is pretty funny. But so yeah, he's hardcore Beatles.
Okay.
Just everything. Beatles is king. And so, you know, he brings that, just loves the Beatles. Don had, he's originally from Virginia, and he was in some touring bands in the 80s, recording bands in the 80s. I think one was called 1010, if I remember. And I know they did some shows, some festival shows in Holland with Simple Minds, and you know, had some really cool experiences with that. And yeah, he's into all kinds of great music too. So yeah, just they're great, but they're great people.
It's awesome. Let's talk about rehearsal a little bit, right? We all know that's an important part of being in a band. Maybe talk to someone or tell us if someone who's never been through a rehearsal process with a band. What is that like? What does it take?
It depends on whether we have a gig coming up or not. If we have a gig coming up and we're not working on new songs, then you know we might have a rough set list put together or a set list put together and we're just running through that stuff. Sometimes if there's newer songs that we had recently added, we might only work on certain sections. Then other times, like most recently, we've chosen a batch of new songs and we get together and we see if we can play them or not and see if they have potential.
And then when you're rehearsing, being a three-piece, right? Do you guys, how do you fill out the sound? Is it backing vocals? What are some of the techniques you're using to keep that bigger sound going?
Don fills up a lot of sound with his guitar, different pedals and different things that he uses. I have a Roland sampler that I will trigger different keyboard sounds, different sound effects as well. So just little things like that.
Yeah. And then let's talk about the drums, the actual gear, right?
Right?
All those drummers out there, they love their gear, right? So maybe what you play, some of the things that you enjoy, the equipment, maybe some of the tech talk.
Right, I have a 1970s stainless steel Ludwig. Always my dream to own one of those, so that's my go-to drum kit. Pasty cymbals, Roland electronics, my gongs, of course, gotta have gongs. That's about it from a gear standpoint.
Is a gong for show or for using? You know, 'cause a lot of these guys
we prefer
to show.
we prefer to use it. I do use it for a couple songs, but yeah, it depends on what's in the set.
Because it looks cool.
Yes, absolutely. It's always there, whether or not it gets used once or it gets used multiple times.
Right.
But
What song have you been using on lately?
I've used it as in the intro for Magic Carpet Ride.
Oh, okay.
I'll do a roll on that, and then I do a big crash at the end of the show, just because everyone loves a big gong crash.
Right,
so.
right. No cowbell, right?
Not an acoustic one, no.
So you guys, you enjoy playing live. Now let's talk a little bit about the old days when you're in Downfall. Let's talk, people love the studio experience. Let's talk about some of your studio experience. Did you enjoy it? What did you like about it? So, get a little background there.
First time in the studio, I hated it. Absolutely, I wasn't feeling good physically, and we had one night to basically get the tracks down, at least from a drum standpoint. And I'd never played to a click before, so that was that challenge. And it was a very, very tough, unenjoyable experience to get through with mixed results. Yeah. Second time, again, we had one day to do the drums, but it was like started early morning and we could take all day if we needed to. And that was a lot more enjoyable. I was able to get the tracks down pretty quickly and be happy with them. So,
and then when you guys released those, did you feel good about the output?
Yeah, the second go round, yes. Yeah, the songs that came out of that, I'm very proud of. First one was, like I say, it was kind of mixed results on it. Some good stuff, some bad.
So you're from the Detroit region, or at least you live there now. I don't know where you grew up. Did you grow up in the region?
Yep.
Okay. Do you have any influences of the Detroit sound at all in your musical background? I mean, progressive rock doesn't really kind of coexist in the background of Detroit music. I'm just curious.
I would say I'm probably one of the least influenced people by the Detroit scene, music scene throughout. Yeah, it's never really done much for me.
Right. It's a little more gritty garage band type stuff.
Yeah.
That's the almost punk style plus Motown,
or straight. Of course. Yeah, well, Motown's great, obviously, but it's not. I don't play any, so I don't really. I enjoy it, but it hasn't really influenced me now.
So going back a little bit on influences, maybe give me 2 or 3 professional drummers that have really inspired you or you've learned from that you enjoyed.
Yeah, Carl Palmer is the number one for me.
Give a little background for people who don't know who he is.
Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Asia are the two big ones. Kenny
He still
Jones
tours, right?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he still tours with his own band. They're doing kind of like an ELP tribute now.
Okay.
So not quite what he was doing a few years ago, but it's still pretty enjoyable.
You said Kenny Jones, yeah?
Kenny Jones. I first saw his work with The Who, enjoyed the work with The Who, but then going back and hearing the Small Faces.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the Small Faces a lot.
And you're a rare one when you say Kenny Jones of The Who.
Yeah.
Being a Who fan, most people don't say him.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
No, they don't. But I discovered The Who around the Face Dances. It's Hard period, and I think the first time I really saw them playing was the broadcast of the final show from Toronto.
Right.
So they showed a lot of him.
Yeah.
So he was just, and I really enjoyed his playing. So I enjoyed Face Dances. I just love that album.
It's a great album for sure.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah. Talk about The Who. I love Keith Moon. I can't play anything like him. So.
Right. Who can?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So anybody else? You got 2 there. Anybody else you want to talk about?
A lot for various reasons. Neil Peart, of course. It's Bill Bruford, King Crimson, and Yes, a big influence on me. Michael Giles from the first King Crimson, Alan White from Yes, Roger Taylor from Queen.
Okay. So you've been to a lot of concerts in your life. Tell me a drummer that you've seen live that you didn't have high expectations or no expectations, then you saw and you were blown away, or just someone that maybe was not that famous or was mid-level famous.
I don't know if there's anybody that I didn't have an expectation of. I can say that when I first saw Deep Purple, Ian Pace was amazing. And
I've seen it. He is great.
And I hadn't seen him play. Yeah. I'd heard him on various things, but I'd never seen him. So he was one of the first that I saw that just kind of blew me away as far as, wow, this guy just plays the whole show and goes all out. And
that is true.
Yeah, he's incredible.
I saw them back in the 80s. They were awesome.
Yeah, that was my first tour. Was the Perfect Strangers tour.
Yeah, same one. Yeah.
Yeah. So
down in Detroit.
Yep.
We were at the same show.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. It was a great show.
Yes,
yeah.
it was.
I never thought I'd get to see that original lineup or that lineup together.
No.
So
And I
awesome.
wasn't aware of them, much before that. I just knew they were important. So I was like, okay, I guess I got to go to the show. And
right. You weren't disappointed.
No, I was not.
Yeah.
Glad I did.
Now, what about a band, not a drummer, but somebody that you really enjoyed seeing live, or somebody that surprised you? Kind of that rock and roll experience that sometimes you just didn't expect that to be so good.
Yeah, I can't think of too many shows that exceeded expectations. I mean, there were certain ones, like when I first saw Emerson, Lake and Palmer, that was, I never thought I would see them, so that was amazing. Bands like that where you thought if they were a personal favorite, you thought you were never going to see them. If they had broken up and got back together, you were grateful to see them. Right. Few bands I've been disappointed with as far as song selection. Set list wise, not performance wise necessarily, but song selection. Yeah. I won't name names.
You're right, I understand. So we'll wrap it up with just kind of anything you give advice to other musicians, whether they're in a cover band or if they're in a original band, or just any kind of musical advice with your experience now.
Just to have fun. Just have fun with it. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's just enjoying the experience and playing music and sharing it with other people.
Great. Well, thanks for the interview. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.